Oh, fuck.
All right, so
always been a dream of mine.
Yeah, this is pretty much what we did the entire podcast for. We're here with Mark Passio. Mark, thanks for having us.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey,
yeah, I mean, you're probably one of the main reasons that I got into this kind of stuff. It definitely saved me from all the latest psyops.
Awesome.
You know, possibly saved my life. Never know.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So where do you want to start off?
Well, I just was wondering if you could, I love your Wizard of Oz presentation.
Cool.
And I think that there's a thing, I don't know, you could tell me, the Satanists have to kind of tell you what they're up to, or they kind of let you in on the joke in a way. But back in the turn of the century when Wizard of Oz was super popular and everything, in your presentation you talk about how it's sort of like the old world order of the religion was dying off and the new world order was coming in. And this is kind of them like showing that there's like hope for humanity or something like that. But I mean, this stuff fascinates me. And lately you've been on the fucking money with the psyops though.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think there is an occult belief. Some people have referred to this as revelation of the method, whereby dark occultists sort of have to inform, according to their own laws, their twisted, sick belief systems that you know might be considered laws to them. They have to tell people what they're doing to them because they believe that not saying no is tacitly saying yes. So they think if you don't speak the lost word, the word of all power, the word that reclaims all individual power and sovereignty, which is the word no. I always refer to no as the lost word of Freemasonry, and I believe that it is. These occultists believe that if people do not say no to their agendas and what they are putting out there that they're going to do to people, and they do telegraph what they're going to do. They tell you about what's coming. They tell you about how they're going to bring it about in many cases, and then they do it. They don't just talk about it. They act upon their belief systems. So that's why it's important to understand what their belief systems are. This is what I've been trying to do over the past 16 years is explain to people what Satanism really is, what dark occultism really is. And it's very difficult to do.
Is there a light side to the occult?
Without a doubt. You know, it's just knowledge about the human psyche and how it works and operates, what our deep-seated motivations are, why we do the things we do, what goes on in the processes of the mind, what informs our behavioral decision-making processes. And then it also incorporates the wider laws of nature from a physical perspective, which the occult, the dark occultists have a vested interest in keeping secret from a perspective of both, financial means, financial reasons, to keep their systems of power in the energy systems that they've controlled over the centuries. And from a perspective of controlling human beings, because the understanding of the physical laws of nature and how energy really works ultimately translates into controlling human beings. So the occult encompasses all of those bodies of knowledge. It incorporates the knowledge of how the self works and the knowledge of how the universe works. And they're really mirror reflections of each other. And of course, contained within the knowledge of how the universe works is the knowledge of natural law. And that's what they really, really don't want people to know. Because if people truly know that and align their behavior with it, it doesn't matter what controlling force they're up against. It's game over for that controller. It's game over for the enslaver, for the manipulator.
It's one of the craziest parts of your natural law documentary is when they're interviewing people on the street and they're like, is government in nature? And all these people in the documentary are like, oh yeah, there's a hierarchy, all this stuff. And you're like, bro, like you're telling me that mind control, literal mind control is in nature. Like get the fuck out of here.
Well, what they're really saying, and I actually screened that documentary, my friend Jeff, who runs Inquire and Inspire documentary nights, screened that documentary last night, and I was in a Q&A session, and in the Q&A session, what I said was, did you see all those people who believe that government inherently exists in the natural world? And they all justified it by saying, we need to provide things for other people. We need services that we have to fund this way, that we have to have taxation and we have to have government. And they believe in a hierarchy of control. And they quoted, for their reason for believing in this, they said, well, don't you look at the animal kingdom and see that there's a pecking order and there's, a hierarchy within any animal systems? And it's like what I said two things. Number one, imagine believing that human beings should just behave as animals.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's chimp empire.
Yeah.
Imagine thinking that that's the highest thought and aspiration that you have for humanity, is that we should behave like the beasts of the field.
Yeah. But, I mean, isn't that the thing with Freemasons, though? It's like the Freemasons think that we are going to climb Jacob's ladder, end up in a different, we can attain to a higher thing.
Well, I think any real occultism, the goal is a higher level of consciousness.
Right.
The goal is the understanding of natural law and then willfully bringing our behavior into alignment with it so that we can prosper and be free. Any true occultism, that is its ultimate goal and purpose, is to provide that knowledge, make it common sense, propagate it, get it out there to the masses of the people so that we can change the human condition from slavery to freedom.
Yeah, one of the craziest things in that PSYOP presentation he gave was the guy's the Hawkins scale or whatever, where
Yes,
it's like
David Hawkins,
the
yes.
collective consciousness of us just is not up there, man. We are like guaranteed to be enslaved right now.
Yeah, easily.
We're still not at the level of consciousness by which most human beings are capable of recognizing truth from falsehood. We are still in the consciousness of illusion, where we're easily deceived, where we're easily misled, we're easily manipulated into believing in things that are not true. And we have not developed the tool set, the internal tool set for us to actually be able to methodologically recognize truth. We don't have that process in hand, unfortunately. It's
But
in
you
the
get
occult
you
maxims.
get a vibration of it, though. You get a feeling of it.
Some people have a slight intuition regarding it and can tell that there's something wrong. But we still don't have in the occult world the maxim of truly learning how to think. As I talk about in my work.
That's why the scarecrow needs a brain, dude.
That's right. That's right. Yep. The first maxim in the occult, the first dictate, if you will, is stop lying to yourself. Stop telling yourself things that aren't true, because the more you believe your own lies and BS that you tell yourself, then the more you're open to other people's manipulation, the more you're willing to lie to them and perpetuate deception. So that's the first place that everything has to stop, is before you can even learn to embrace truth, you have to stop lying.
I've always thought this and said this because it's in your natural law documentary. You start talking about how like it's really fucked up. It's like a violent thing to lie to someone. But like I've always hated liars because they distort my reality.
Yeah.
And like it kills me that people do this, and they're stealing my reality.
I never thought of it like that, though. It makes complete sense. If you're bullshitting and the person you're talking to is bullshitting, you'll just lie to each other forever because it feels good.
Sure.
Well, people lie to themselves just to protect their fragile fucking situation.
Yeah.
Briefly going back to, what is a lie? We're talking about the people on the interviews and the person on the street interviews in my natural law documentary, and the lies that they use to justify what they believe. It's unbelievable. This is what I was talking about last night at the Q&A session. Imagine not only believing that we should behave as the other animals of the animal kingdom, and we shouldn't aspire to be anything greater than that in our consciousness, but imagine believing that it is perfectly justifiable to continue to have a violent and coercive hierarchy that keeps people under duress, a situation by which if they do not comply to the wishes of the quote-unquote lawmakers, those who arbitrarily set dictates according to their whims and preferences by which they want society to operate, called human laws, that violent repercussions should come down upon their fellow men and women. This is what anybody who believes that government is morally legitimate and should continue to exist actually believes in. They believe in violence and slavery. They believe human beings who have not harmed other people, because the ruling class has dictated that they behave differently, should have violence conducted upon them and should ultimately be the subject of another human being or class of human beings. And I think nothing is more morally and mentally reprehensible. For anybody to continue to think this in the modern day means that they are just such an internal piece of garbage that I can't even imagine how anybody grows up to be an adult and actually continues to think that way, because they themselves internally are a violent animal.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, we just did an episode on Waco a little while back, and like I asked my buddies about that, and all they think about is like, oh, those were some wackos that got lit up by the ATF. Like, that is like the textbook definition.
Some of the best, it's not even an argument, it's just plain as day, is if you watch the natural law presentation that Mar does, I never understood that I had laws of the universe on my side.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up in a complete psyop through Hollywood and the government, and like, you don't know, you just kind of know there's a Second Amendment, but you don't know why.
Yeah.
And like the founding fathers, like, they were like, dude, you got to protect, these are like divine rights.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I never thought of it like that before. I remember like it was yesterday. I was like, oh, I'm going to pop on this Mark Passio thing. Never heard of this before. Hit it, taking a shower. This dude saying the shit. I'm just like, yes, yes, yes.
It is like, especially with like the right to carry guns and stuff like that. The minute government comes in there, like even with the stuff they're saying with like maybe you should have like a psych eval or something, the minute one of those things gets let go, everything's out the window. They're just going to keep taking it from
That's
you.
what infringements are. Infringements are minor incursions that keep building and building and building. And that's why we have to be vigilant and not let that occur. Unfortunately, that involves the true moral education of human beings, and that's why we're losing our rights. The ignorant have their rights stripped from them. One of the main things I talk about in the natural law documentary is, and what we did is we went out on the street, we interviewed many, many people and asked them, could they define a right? Could you define a human right? This should be common sense knowledge. This should be easy to do. This should be something that is known by just about every human being walking this planet. And in every time we ever did this social experiment, we have never yet gotten a correct answer. Not one single solitary human being in the many times that we've conducted this social experiment, and it doesn't matter what area, what city, what geographic region, what demographic, zero. There's no factor that plays into it in any way. Age, race, sex, you name it. Not one person that we've ever asked that question to has ever answered it correctly.
But the knowledge is there. The occult, the people that have all this hidden knowledge, them keeping it from us is kind of messed up.
Yeah, but are they really?
Well,
I mean,
yeah, sure. But
are they just dissuading us from looking into it and saying, oh, there's nothing to that? Or they're giving us nonsense religion?
They give us distractions and religions and all that other stuff. Yeah.
Do you know how many religious people I have told what you ultimately need to know is the knowledge of the occult? And they insist, I do not.
They freak out.
And you know what?
I'm like indoctrinated from this, from like, because I grew up Catholic.
Oh, he went to Catholic school.
Yeah, like I watched a Discovery Channel like exorcism thing, and I was fucked up like until yesterday about it. Like, it destroyed my entire existence.
Well, think about the genius strategy. From their perspective, the strategy is brilliant, right? So,
They're masters of human psychology, dude.
Yeah.
They want people to be afraid of the very knowledge that could liberate them. Think about how much that's genius from a perspective of evil.
Well, this is what I was trying to say. Like, if you're telling me that the Wizard of Oz is an allegory for basically like an awakening
Absolutely.
of this, and you go through the Scarecrow needs a brain, the Lion needs courage,
the Tin Man needs a heart, like all this stuff, like, and then it's all there in the tarot cards, and like this is their world that they're presenting to you, and we all got it when we were like little kids.
That allegory,
You know what I mean?
though, is a very powerful, positive occult.
It's a positive
allegory.
one, yeah.
L. Frank Baum is not one of the bad guys. This is a guy who understood the knowledge of the occult and realized how ignorant people were, but also realized that this knowledge is what we require. We need an occult revival, as I've said many, many times. And an occult revival was in the works during that time period. It was kind of like beginning to trail off and get lost, actually. But people in the late 1800s, early 1900s really did attempt what I would consider to be an occult revival of this knowledge. And then it really, really trailed off, beginning really with World War I. And then obviously in World War II, it really, really got decimated.
Me and my buddy were talking about the occult because he's really into like Paul McCartney's dead, Paul is dead stuff, and like we were talking about like
That's a fun conspiracy.
it's a great one, and he's taking it really deep. Like I want to get him on the podcast. He's talking about like this book, The Golden Bow, and like I'm reading this other book on the occult, and he's basically saying like they had it locked in. It was kind of like in the Middle Ages, right around there, like everyone, they had got it so that everyone just knew Jesus was the Son of God. Like there was no questioning it.
Yeah.
So like coming into like what's Madame Blavatsky and like all that stuff, they were like making moves. Like people were waking up to this stuff.
Yeah.
And I just want to know like what we could have been if we never even got psyoped back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Higher beings.
We might be like 1,000 years behind.
Easily, dude.
What religion has done is nothing short of colossal, as far as the degradation of human consciousness. And it's really a very ignorant child's perspective of reality, unfortunately.
Child's
and people like
mentation,
that don't see it like that. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. The very, very, very ignorant don't even understand their ignorance. They don't understand how ignorant of things they are. They just believe that's normal because they can only see it from that low level of consciousness.
Well, if there's anything the pandemic did for me was I watched a lot of people that I know that they're smart. They're smart in the world. They're considered way smarter than me, and they are gone. They, for some reason, there's aspects of this stuff that they can't let in their head, and they live in denial of what's going on.
And it's because they don't have holistic intelligence operating. They have a modicum of a form of intellect operating, but they don't have what I refer to as holistic intelligence. They're not really street smart to how things truly work. Part of them is a very, very, very naive baby. And they don't want to grow up out of that state of consciousness because growing out of it implicitly implies distinct personal responsibility that falls down upon your shoulders to continue to elevate your consciousness and also to educate your fellow human being so that you help them rise in consciousness.
It is crazy when you start to think that, like, when you start to look into this stuff, the farther you get down the road, you're like, oh, I have to do this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you're like, because I get really attracted to, and this is embarrassing for me, but, the white hats are going to save us, all this stuff. It's, yo, man, that's a child's mentation. They're not coming. Yeah. You got to save yourself and save everybody around you.
It's a tough one to resist for many people because they really, really want to feel that someone else has their best interests at heart. And one of the things that I say is the fastest way to become hated and even possibly killed is to tell people that their life is fully their own personal responsibility and that no one else has their vested interests in mind and that they have to work to improve the world for themselves and for future human beings. They don't want to hear that. They want to believe that job falls to someone else. It doesn't fall to anyone else. It's always our responsibility.
They just want parents.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He was pretty on the ball. Like when all that Q stuff was happening, the minute they started saying oh, just sit back, they're in control, they'll get it.
Stand down, psyop.
Yeah, it's immediately
that's a red flag right there. Where I was like, whoa, what are they doing?
Yeah, that was a tough one, but it made once all that started happening, you kind of it's weird because it's almost like you're in a fog when you're like, oh shit, this stuff's all going down, it's gonna be great. Then you step out of it, you're like, oh fuck, they got me.
I mean, just go back to the person on the street interviews, that we did as a theme here. And just think about, they're telling other people proudly and displaying their innermost thoughts and saying, I'm fine with there being a hierarchy of power in our society. I'm perfectly okay with that. I find that perfectly justifiable.
It's girls too, dude. And I hate to dig it there, but there's ladies saying it. And I was like, how do you believe this?
Yeah.
You are first out of the room. Like, you're done.
Yeah.
They believe that violence is an acceptable method of conducting all human affairs. Think about how immoral of a human being that makes a person. And we were talking about this last night in the Q&A session for the documentary screening. We were asking the question, was there one thing that we asked all of the people, one thing that we asked everybody that they universally agreed upon, that they all gave the same answer? Because in every question that we asked in those interviews, there was a myriad of responses. Not everybody gave the same answer. But there was only one question that every person that we've ever interviewed answered the same. And here was the question. We asked everybody, after asking all of these other questions, the last question we asked them is, do you consider yourself a good and moral human being?
They're all failing that one.
Every single person said, yes, I do. When they had just answered our other questions, that they believe violence and slavery are perfectly acceptable human conditions. Imagine how completely inverted our society is, that this is how dumb people are, that they don't even recognize. They've just openly told other people, I think violence is perfectly acceptable. I think slavery is perfectly an acceptable condition for humanity. And yet, simultaneously, I believe myself to be a good and virtuous and moral human being. Imagine that.
That's the lie to yourself thing you're talking about.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's occult principle number one. They're lying to themselves.
King Charles with his fat fingers is all in the World Wildlife Fund, thinking he's like some kind of a beast doing an insane coronation. Like, I would love to be able to be in your world, to be able to watch things and understand the symbols in real time. To be able to watch it and just go.
Does it ruin a lot of shit for you?
It makes it kind of boring because these people never switch up their tactics because they don't have to.
Yeah.
So you could watch the same thing play out
looking at checkerboard floors.
over and over and over and over again, and the public just remains just as dumb and ignorant as they ever have been, watching the same manipulation take place. It's not only boring; it's a hell.
Yeah.
It's a hell to see something unfold that you can see so blatantly and obviously that you would think a 2-year-old child that's just learning, mastering walking, would be able to see at the snap of a finger. And yet human adults who are competent in many other ways in their jobs and society cannot see it because they don't have a mind that is developed in these other ways that is capable of recognizing these tactics. They just can't think at that level.
They taught me a bunch of it. I went to art school and they taught me a bunch of the symbols. We would go to the museums and like all of those Renaissance, all those Titian paintings and stuff. They're telling a story. That was their movies.
Yeah.
So if you see one of those big ones that's like
Sure.
everything's going on, like all of those things, all of those symbols, you're seeing the Mason.
They're deeply encoded allegorical paintings.
It's like pillars.
Now, does that like for the occult, like, does that give them like power of like people looking at that stuff or like people falling for that stuff? Is it like
it's a combination? I mean, it depends on who's doing it and why. Sometimes it's like, oh, I can put this right in front of you, but you can't see it, can you? We can tell you everything right there in an image or an allegory, and you're too stupid to see it. But for some, it is a positive,
like
influencing thing. Yeah. It's like, we're not going to come out and say this out in the open, right? We're going to veil it in an allegory because then maybe we can even insert it more deeply into the subconscious mind than having the conscious mind wrestle with it and try to make sense of it. We're going to put the essence of the idea through symbol and allegory directly into the subconscious mind, where it can go to work at an even more powerful level. You know, because most of our behavior is driven by the subconscious. The goal of the occult world, the goal of occult teachings and all spiritual teachings, really, if they're true and unadulterated, is to actually bring the information that's encoded at the level of the subconscious up to the conscious mind to be fully recognized and fully understood at a conscious level. That's when real power develops in the individual. When you no longer have to rely on subconscious encoding and decoding of allegory, symbol, moral teachings, etc. You've grown up out of that level of parable and allegory. And now you can fully integrate it at a conscious level.
That would be so cool.
That's when a person becomes a philosopher. You know, that's true philosophy, where you're really explaining these ideas out in the open, clarifying them, making them clear for others, helping other people to also attain that level of understanding.
How did you find the light?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask. Like, when did this start for you?
I delved into positive occultism after getting involved in dark occultism. And again, I've told this story on my podcast many times, and in Demystifying the Occult Part 2, I tell about my involvement in the world of Satanism and the dark occult. Most people would think, if you sort of saw all the evil that's taking place at that level of that type of occultism, and again, I wasn't at a high level of the world of the dark occult. By my own admission, I tell people I was at the Boy Scout level of this. Mm-hmm. You know, it goes so further and deeper than the level I was involved in, but my personal level of involvement was enough to really grab me by the throat, shake the shit out of me, and scare me into recognizing these people have really, really, really bad intentions for humanity, and they are capable of carrying them out. And that's when I decided to become a whistleblower. But before I even became a whistleblower, I vetted everything and really deeply looked even much, much deeper into the realm of the occult. After attending rituals in my tri-state area that were full of Satanists, you know, it was a, satanic ritual home.
Are these in like houses or like
in houses?
Oh, okay.
This would be a typical place, something like this.
All right, chill with that.
Obviously,
we're white occultists around here. Come on, that.
a little bit more elaborate, a little bit bigger and more elaborate. I mean, go and look at houses like on Route 23 here. And
Okay. Gladwin, shit like that.
Oh yeah,
I got you.
And Lower Merion, Upper Merion. I mean, just amazing structures.
I've painted at some places. I house painter. I've painted some places that are very
weird.
I've seen some occult things in very high political houses.
Check out Rose Valley, Pennsylvania, places like that. I mean, you'll see the affluence, and it would just be like something like this, where people gather in a basement, in a furnished basement, and they conduct the ritual, and then they would just split up and have conversations and food, etc. It was like a party. Where a ritual was conducted at it.
Well, you saw this, and thank God you got you did not like this.
Well, no, at first, I didn't even understand what was really going on. I looked at the occult from a perspective of this is knowledge to be used by the individual to enhance their own living circumstances.
Sweet.
So for a selfish, egotistical perspective from the point of view of the individual only. When I started attending rituals where all of the power brokers of the surrounding society in every institutional walk of life were attending the satanic rituals that I was attending and participating in them, I realized, look, this is something way bigger than I thought it was. And these people are all working together. They're not here just for individual learning and enhancing their own individual lives.
Yeah, no service to others going on.
Yeah.
Oh, none. But not only is it service to self, it's service to a group agenda. I realized that this was a very cohesive, tight-knit, worldwide hierarchical network of occultists that are working together. You know, every institutional walk of life, there were people at high-level positions of power showing up and participating in the religion of Satanism. Police, military, bankers, politicians, judges, lawyers, principals of schools, people involved in education, people involved in music, entertainment, you name it. Every institutional walk of life.
So it's not bullshit when people are saying like Satanists run the world.
That's exactly who's
also
running
too
things.
like the tenets of Satanism or whatever. They
line up with like
they
politicians.
don't sound that messed up.
Yeah,
It's not just Satanists running the world. It's Satanism as a religion is the
De
religion
facto
of
Satanism, dude.
almost all human beings.
yeah.
Satanism's tenets are, the first tenet is absolute selfishness and service to the self only. That's most people's mentality.
Yeah.
They're not interested in doing anything for everybody else. So as soon as they wake up, their whole mentality from the minute they wake up till the minute they go to sleep at night
go,
is
what
me,
do I
me,
get out of
me.
it?
That's it.
Yeah.
What am I going to do for me? Me. I need this. I need that. There's no thought to, today I'm going to do my best to put out information to help educate other people morally.
They're not pulling over the side of the road for a flat tire.
You know, I mean, just think about from that perspective. How many people do you know who make other people's education truly their life's work? But I'm not even talking about like teaching them math or science. I'm talking about teaching people morality, teaching them true spirituality so that they grow in consciousness. Hardly anybody ever even considers that, let alone even speaks it aloud, let alone is doing it.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about when I say that Satanism is the religion of our society. You know, enshrined selfishness is what Satanism is. It's elevating the self to godhood, you know, putting the self in the position of apotheosis or elevation to godhood. And it means like you consider the self to be God. That's what you serve. You're not serving truth. You're not serving goodness. You're not serving creation. You're not, you know, serving the force of natural law operating in the universe. You're just serving the ego.
What did they throw you like to teach you to get you going?
You know,
What is the?
I really read and deeply incorporated into my mindset back then Anton LaVey's writings, the Satanic Bible, the Satanic Rituals, the Devil's Notebook, books like that.
I have a friend that he's into Aleister Crowley. He says the writings are good.
Yeah.
But it spooks me.
I can't quite like that Boleskine
it's
house shit.
It's a very tough one because Crowley could be considered the epitome of occultism. I've done shows on Crowley and his work. I've done shows on Thelema. And I also consider the writings extremely valuable. The writings in Thelemic philosophy are incredibly powerful and enlightening. The problem is with Crowley himself.
Yeah, he was a weirdo.
So this is where you have to have the judgment. You have to have the discernment to separate the man from the writings. And Thelemic writings and Crowley are not the same thing. And it's very difficult for people to understand that. You know, let's say I totally lost my way, became a total thief and robber, you know, started breaking into homes and taking what I want. Would that negate everything I said about natural law?
No.
There you have it.
There you go.
You know, if I became a scumbag criminal at some point in the future, for whatever reasons I justified it,
Yeah.
that would change zero that I've ever said about natural law and the truth regarding it.
Yeah.
I was on the subway and EJ had his big jacket on. I was like, yo, what book is that? He just walking around with a book in his pocket and he lifted it up. And it was like something like the Book of Law or something. I can't remember what it was called. But I was like, yeah, that's spooky me. Put it away. Please.
Yeah.
The Book of the Law, Liber Legis. Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. But again, I try not to start with Crowley because most people do not have a frame of reference in occult philosophy to even comprehend what you're saying regarding that. It's very difficult. I tell people like Thelema should be the end, right? If you're going to study Thelema, study other works of occultism first so that you have a groundwork in general occult principles, and then look into Thelema and Crowley's writings, and you'll understand them then. You know, most people try to jump into that because it's
cool.
They want to satisfy their curiosity, or they think
Led
it's cool.
Zeppelin and all this.
It's very, very reversed way of doing it. It's you shouldn't do it in that order.
But you got spooked when you saw what was actually going on, and then you started diving deeper into the occult, and now
I realized it was a complete control system.
Right.
Total control system. Worse than religion, because this is the religion controlling all the other religions. This is the
Final
religion
boss.
that created those religions. I'm trying to tell people who believe in Christianity, like from a churchianity point of view, look, there's a difference between esoteric Christianity from a true perspective regarding the golden rule, which is natural law, versus churchianity. What the church is trying to get people to buy into is complete and utter nonsense from a dogmatic perspective to control their thoughts. That's all it really is. Same thing with every other religion. It has all of its dogma and its trappings as a religion. And then there's a core inner understanding that is the esoteric side regarding morality that gets covered up by all this other gunk and nonsense. And most people can't cut through the BS part of it to see those core truths. They get wrapped up in the dogma. They get wrapped up in the religiosity of it.
So when did we have it as people? Like where did this occult come from? Like when did we have like this collect this knowledge?
That goes back into a very, very, very complex, ancient historical account of that involves the origins of humanity. And you know, a lot of people will not want to look into any of that. I've broken some of that down in my Cosmic Abandonment presentation that talks about human origins. I call it an explanatory synthesis of human origins and the human condition, something to that effect. And, you know, we have to understand that we have been controlled since humanity has existed. We have been living as a slave species. And our enslavers give us ridiculous mental constructs to keep us enslaving ourselves, to keep us believing things that aren't true, right? So the first occult maxim is stop lying to yourself, right? This means stop telling yourself untruths and then accepting them as true. This is what religion is. All religion is designed to do. And I don't just mean the cultural religions. I don't, when I say the word religion, the first thing people have to do in understanding my usage of that word in all my work is to understand I am not just talking about formalized, traditional, cultural religions. So that's very important to keep in mind regarding my definition of the word religion, which is the true definition. I'm not talking about just Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, on and on and on and on and on, okay? I'm not just referring to traditional religious belief systems. I am talking about anything that is untrue that people rigidly and dogmatically cling to. So government is one of the biggest religions in the world. It's not true. It's not moral. It's not natural.
It seems like government's replaced what used to be religion.
That is correct. And this is what I explained in my recent presentation that I delivered out in Georgia called Government is Slavery. The old world order was religion and kingship, right? Sometimes combined. Sometimes you would have a priest king. Sometimes you would have a secular king. Sometimes you have a purely religious leader like a caliphate, or some people would even say pharaohs and pharaonic dynasties were like religious leaders, the representation of God on earth. In the old world, in the ancient world, there was authority. The belief in authority was manifested and vested in one person. This was the king, the ruler, whatever you want to call it, the sovereign. It's royalty. It's the belief that something about this person makes them better than other people, and therefore they're allowed to command other people. They're allowed to lay down what they consider the law, their dictates, their commands, no matter how arbitrary, no matter how they justify them. And other people who are referred to as their subjects are morally obligated to obey that being's commands, because they're somehow the representation of God, the divine right of kings, okay? This idea has been instilled in humanity really since we've existed. And again, if you want to look into who I think instilled that belief, you can check out my cosmic abandonment presentation. I don't know if we have the time or this interview is going to have the scope to get into all of that material, because it's an incredibly long and deep dive into the ancient past that requires a lot of research and study that most people will readily reject without doing 1 minute of that research, or with doing unbelievably cursory research without looking into any source text or materials. They'll just make a snap judgment based on a few videos that they watch.
It's so ingrained in people, because I was talking to my friend about it, and he said that they had God down, they had Jesus down. Like when the Catholic Church was like the Holy Roman Empire, they had it to the point where they had to do this thing. It's like they like had to humanize God.
Yeah.
So there was like a whole movement that they orchestrated to try to make God more of it, like through art and like icons to like try to make him more human to people, because they had one.
Yeah.
They broke the backboard. It's over. They were like, yeah, you're controlled. That's God. That's Jesus. This is the king. This is the Pope.
So when I'm talking about religion in that sense, I don't just mean cultural religions. I'm talking about government. I'm talking about the belief in authority.
Do you think we do this to ourselves?
We want to externally empower anything
Just
to
make us
shelter
feel
ourselves
better.
from our own personal responsibility.
I feel that.
It's the mentality that I call cosmic childhood. You know, we have not come into,
Neverland, dude.
Yeah.
we haven't come into cosmic adulthood.
You're the
Another
pan,
great
bro.
allegory. You got it.
That must have been like painful for you to watch COVID roll out and everyone go along with that.
I could show you a text on my phone
From March of 2020?
where a friend
This is all Billy does.
where a friend contacted me, and when the streets of Philadelphia were clearing of people and everybody was staying inside and businesses were starting to close on the fear, you know, nothing, no dictates had came down from any government.
That's when you know they're trying to do.
Yeah.
If you are afraid, if you know that they're busted fear out, something's about to come.
So a friend of mine texted me and said, Mark, what the hell is going on? And I said, this is a psyop to get, for them to see if they can get everybody to just stay in their home on day one.
Yeah.
So like knowing their technique, it's not even a surprise. It's a, and that's the attitude. It's boring. But again, it's also hell, because it's like, I can see it, and 99.99999% of human beings can't see it.
It makes me sad for the human potential of just one individual as an infant, but us as a species. It's really sad to think that we could be like aligned cosmically to whatever this higher climb Jacob's ladder, whatever it is, dude.
Yeah,
That's what I think all the time.
I
You know,
don't
what is our
understand.
potential, our unrealized potential, and we're not going to reach it because we're stuck in believing all these nonsensical belief systems like authority.
That's the pain.
So, you know, going back to the allegory, or not the allegory, the explanation of authority, the old world order was authority, the belief in authority vested in one human being, calling themselves the king or royalty, and that's called the old world order. Now, the new world order is exactly the same as the old world order, except we give
The new
people,
boss is the same as the old boss.
we give people new words, we give people a new story, we give people a new euphemism to call it, and it's still the same exact thing. Because how was ancient rulership or kingship carried out? How was it functionally carried out?
Violence.
The king said, I'm the lawmaker. Here's my decrees. If you do anything that violates my decrees, what will happen to you? Violence. I will send my henchmen, who I've gotten to believe in my authority, to go and do violence to you until you comply. And if you refuse to comply, we'll kill you, to set an example for other people that you'll comply to my commands, or you'll have violence done unto you, or you'll have murder done unto you. My question to everybody is, was that situation in any area of the world where it was ever practiced ever moral? Was that
It can't
ever
be.
a moral right? Could it have ever been a moral right for people to behave that way?
No, because it goes against natural law.
It's an impossibility.
My question, the thing I think about a lot is like these dudes and these like elites that are all doing this horrible shit to us. Like, what is their thought process on like karma and like death? Because like me personally, I'm trying to be good because it feels right and like it's what I think I should be doing. But like these dudes aren't afraid, like all the horrible shit they do, and they're not afraid of croaking. Like what's up with their brains?
Let me preface that by two things. Hold on to that because I just want to explain the New World Order first.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Then I'm going to explain exactly the answer to that question by explaining where the question itself contains something that has to be corrected.
Okay.
All right. But it's a very good question.
Thank you.
So the New World Order is the continuation of the Old World Order. But instead of rulership and kingship, which the population eventually tired of and realized, hey, this is total bullshit. We don't need one person commanding millions of people. You know, that is a wrong. That is recognized as a wrong in most places in the world. And we now, the rulers of the society never really lost their power. They went into a covert form of rulership and continued the control system by giving people the illusory belief that they would be in charge and in power through election of representatives in what's called government. But what is government? It's the same hierarchical power structure as the king and his henchmen ruling over the unwashed masses. But instead of authority vested in one person at the top, authority is vested in a few, an oligarchical few calling themselves government. And then they have thugs and enforcers, the military and the police, that they will sick violently upon the population if the population doesn't obey their arbitrary decrees that they call man's laws. So there's nothing different in the structure from the Old World Order to the New World Order. The Old World Order, authority vested in one, the king, the sovereign, the ruler, whatever you want to call him, royalty, and then all the subjects below that who are his slaves, that he gets the command and they must obey or violence will be done unto them. In the New World Order, governments at the top of the hierarchical structure of power, all their thugs and henchmen, the military and police, will conduct violence upon the masses, the ignorant masses below them, if they don't follow their arbitrary decrees called laws of government. All that has differed is we've euphemized it, we've divested the authority from one to a few, and we call it government. It's still the exact same structure. The Old World Order is the New World Order. The old religion is the new religion, except we call it government. And that's mind control. That's you're giving people different words, and you're saying, oh, let's make it a little better. So instead of one ruler, we have a few rulers.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not really even the rulers. They're controlled by the occultists. Because again, all of the religions are given to us by the occult, by the dark occult. All of these belief systems are instilled in people by the social engineers, the think tanks, the intelligence agencies, people who are enshrined behind the corridors of power who you never see.
Even as he's doing it, I'm like making up like light occultists that would be fighting them.
Yeah.
Like in my head, I'm like making up Jedi. Like, no, there's got to be people. There's got to be.
Well, no, there are, but they're scattered to the four winds of the planet. There's a few of them, a paltry few. Like, let's just put it this way. How many people do you really know who have exploded this kind of knowledge out onto the world? I mean, really, really done it and done a damn good job of it.
I mean, I only know you.
But it's a paltry handful, literally. Look, I'm one of a few who have put this information out there like this. And I don't fear any reprisal. I fear zero reprisal because I'm protected by doing what is morally right. The first method of any protection is to stand fully in truth and morality, an objective morality, not any perceived morality. Standing fully and firmly in truth and objective morality provides the greatest protection that any being can have.
But going back to what Bill said, how did the dark occultists sleep at night?
Okay, so your question was, how do the elites do this to us? And my answer is the elites are not doing this to us.
It's us.
Who is doing it to us?
Ourselves.
We do it to ourselves. Fuck.
That's correct.
Jesus.
But Who is the group of beings that is the most responsible for the continuation of violence and slavery?
They call the elites.
No.
Us.
No. Not the average person. The average person, yes, by putting up with it, is very responsible. But there's one group of people who are the most responsible. They are the
I don't want to do this, man.
immoral. They are the most immoral. They're the worst people of all of humanity. The order followers.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, here
Bootlickers
we go.
that fucking enforce these codes on
Billy
you.
just got a ticket.
Yeah.
Who does the physically violent behavior? So just look at it in the old world order, right? Let's look at the old world order of royalty first. When the king, as the quote unquote sovereign, the one ruler, the one master over his subjects, would decree a law and say, if you do this, I don't want anybody walking on that road on Sunday. If I find anybody walking on that road, they'll be punished. Now, did the king walk out of his palace and monitor the road and see if a person was walking on it? And if a person was walking on it, he beat the living hell out of them? Did the king bloody his hands?
Hands are clean.
Okay.
Fuck.
Dude,
Who did it?
There's an old video that he made where I'm almost positive it's got something to do with their little octagon hats.
Yeah.
Like that, dude, the symbolism in the uniforms and in the badges, it's fucking nuts.
The police and military are being continuously ritually mocked by their owners and masters, the Satanists and dark occultists.
Do the occultists really hate their minions? Like,
With such vicious fervor. I cannot tell you the looks that I saw in Satanists and dark Luciferians' eyes when I was involved in the dark occult, when they even thought about police and military, knowing that they're the people who are keeping them in power, but the way they loathe them for being the low form of consciousness that they are. It's
that hurts, bros.
Picture a plantation owner in, let's say, Virginia or North Carolina or South Carolina during the
or
American
Northern Ireland.
right. But let's just say during the American Civil War period, right? And the plantation owner dangles the carrot before one of his very, very strong black slaves on the plantation and says, you'll be given extra food, extra clothing, you'll be given more privileges, you'll be given more considerations, we'll go easier on you, you won't be whipped, you'll be able to sleep in a room in the guest house instead of out in the field.
That's chimp empire, man. This is low. This is low tier. This is not the higher.
And all you need to do is beat your fellow men and women into submission. You're going to be the house slave who beats them into submission. Okay? And almost every single time that person would agree and do it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously the practice of chattel slavery is the abomination of abominations. It's worse than death. You know, it's the most reprehensible act that can ever be committed in our world.
That and what they do to the kids.
Yeah.
True. Pedophilia. But looking at this technique, how did the plantation owner view the house slave that was doing his bidding? Did he look at him with tremendous respect? Or did he look at him like, wow, you absolute piece of dirt. You're already in a situation where you yourself are enslaved and you're willing to do vicious, harmful things to your fellow men and women who are also enslaved. Imagine the contempt. First of all, that is deserving of contempt.
Yeah.
The master's attitude toward that particular slave is the correct one.
But for people with lower consciousness, to be able to zoom out that far and see that is alien, you know?
Yeah, I know. And so how many of them think this is perfectly an acceptable situation as long as I receive my maximum level of creature comfort? Yeah. This is all people want to live for. What is that mentality called? Satanism. That's the cultural inculcation of the public into the religion of the masters of the world. Getting somebody to say, I don't care what's morally right, all I care about is what I get out of it, is inculcating them into Satanism and the satanic mindset. That's their religion.
Slavery was so satanic then.
So going back to your question, how do the elites do it to us? They don't. Their order followers accept whatever creature comforts are thrown in front of them to say, do this to your fellow men and women. Enact my decrees, enforce my decrees. And they say, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'll do that for you. Who brings the resultant harm and violence and coercion and duress into physical manifestation in our world? Do the rulers, do the masters actually do that? Because that king would have to stand on that road and say, I see somebody on my road, now I'm going to take them out.
In the Natural Law documentary, they have the one hotel. Remember when the guy was in the hotel hallway on his hands and knees?
Oh,
and they
yeah.
got
At the
him?
beginning,
That's rugged, dude.
Yep.
So like even like the Hillary Clintons and Bill Gates of the world, like they're Renfields compared, like they're nothing.
Absolutely.
They're just like scumbags that are doing this shit.
Absolutely. Getting their little pittance in
They're
return.
getting their creature comforts.
Oh,
Gates, Schwab, all of them, Harari.
He's a bitch with that shit. Do you like the transhumanism stuff? Like, does that completely go against everything you believe in?
I think that it's totally...
It's the ultimate Satan.
You have to be deceived to believe that, we are going to somehow replace human consciousness. Like instead of improving human consciousness, like you want to replace it with something else. That's the ultimate in defeatism, giving up, distorted left brain thinking.
But how did they come to grips with what they're doing?
But once again, are they doing anything?
I mean, the occult, the ones that know.
Right.
You
But
know?
all they're doing is telling other people deceptive lies.
So they're just cozy in Satanism.
They're really guilty of one and the lowest on the totem pole of the true 7 deadly sins. Again, religion's 7 deadly sins are pride, gluttony, sloth, lust, anger, jealousy, and greed.
You got other ones?
All vices. I have the real ones. Those are the false ones.
Oh, no.
Pride, gluttony, sloth, lust, anger, jealousy, greed. The false 7 deadly sins.
Damn it. Okay. I like.
Why are they false? None of them are violent actions done to other people. They are all internal vices.
Made by Satanists.
Wow, so they're actually like saying all of your wants are bad.
Correct.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying live in this way perpetually and just be debauched and debased.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird that the king's like, all the stuff that you like is bad.
Yeah.
Is pride a sin in and of itself, right? So some forms of pride can be good. Like, I take pride in my work. My work is damn good. Yeah. Damn good.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just good, it's the best out there. That's good. And I want other people to make stuff that's even better than mine.
Good luck.
Right? Okay? But my point is, I've done very tremendous work. And I'm proud of it. And I should be proud of it because I busted my balls to do it. I worked extremely hard to learn what I learned. And I take very specific individual pride as an individual to make my work the best that it can be, make it the clearest I can make it, and help people to truly edify themselves when it comes to objective morality and natural law. And I think I do a great job at that. Now, that's pride. Not going to lie. Is it counterproductive pride? Counterproductive pride is when someone believes that they're actually far, far, far better than they are. And that means they're not really working to improve their work, right? They just believe, oh, my shit doesn't stink. I'm great. I'm the boss. And,
It's like Steven Seagal playing guitar.
Yeah.
So that's counterproductive pride. If you keep dwelling in that, you truly don't improve. But if you have pride and say, like last night, I hadn't watched my natural law documentary since like maybe a couple weeks after it was made and released, and I watched it again just to look at it and say, okay, this is fully done. That's in the books, and I like what I did, and I can take pride in that work, and it's out there now. This is the first time I've watched it in many months. And I watched it last night during the screening, and I was like, wow. That is probably the most important film that has ever been released in all of humanity.
With fresh eyes.
And guess what? That's true. That's a true statement. That's not me bragging.
Get as offended as you like.
So it's like I'm looking at the fruit of what was created, and nothing is perfect. I could say, oh, I could have tweaked that. I could have tweaked that. You know, this cut could have been better. That sound level could have been better. I have little minor criticisms because nothing is perfect, right? And you can't expect perfection.
There's limitations.
Right. Perfection's a construct of the mind that we can attain to, but not really truly reach. But I look at that and I'm like, I'm very proud of that. I should be proud of that because it's great work. And the other people who were involved in the making that film should be proud of that because they did great work. So
it's not
pride
a
is okay.
Yeah.
It's not sinful. So this goes back to those people on the street interviews, right? We were talking about, do you know the definition of a right? 0 people got that correct. And my retort to that is, how can you imagine that you're going to protect human rights? How do you imagine you're going to keep your rights in place?
You know what's crazy is
if you can't define them?
They do so much violence on the whatever it is, whatever the word is, because of human rights.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm
in
trying
the name
to,
of human
in the
rights,
name of-
diplomacy.
Right.
Yeah.
So people couldn't define it. If you can't define it, how do you expect to protect it and keep it?
You got me thinking I can define it right now.
Well, this is very important.
You gotta
This
watch
is
the natural law.
extraordinarily
Yeah.
important. And I'll give the correct definition. And this is the correct definition. And there's only one definition of what a human right is. There's not a million definitions. It's one thing. A right is an action that does not initiate harm upon another sentient being. That is the exact definition of what a human right is. So you'll notice, pardon me, you'll notice I defined the right in the negative. The definition is given in the negative. A right is an action that does not, negative, does not initiate harm against another sentient being. How many actions can be defined as the initiation of harm? It's not a very, very, very long list. There are variations of harm, but there's only actually 7 types of harm. And if we analyze each one of those types of harm in turn, we can actually see that there's only one harm. Only one form of harm can be conducted by one person or a group upon another person or group of people. One harm. That's it. And it shows you how simple this is to understand. But most people overly complexify it. And it doesn't mean that it's easy to come into harmony with, because we justify all the harm that we do. We justify the harm that others do. We make excuses and justifications for why harm has to remain in place. The initiation of harm has to remain in place. And all of it's lying to ourselves. It's all religion. It's all bullshit constructural beliefs that only exist in a diseased psyche, and a psyche that's wildly out of balance. Right? So to know what actions are not the harm, not the initiation of harm, we have to know the small list of actions that do constitute the initiation of harm upon other beings. And they are the true 7 deadly sins. These are not internal vices. They are behaviors that, if conducted upon another, initiate harm upon that other being. They cause a demonstrable degradation of the other being in some way, shape, or form. And here is what those behaviors are. Now, I've been explaining it like this to people since I've been, giving this breakdown. Listen to the qualitative difference just in the words, okay? The false 7 deadly sins were pride, gluttony, sloth, lust, anger, jealousy, greed. Look at the quality of those words and what they represent. Now, you can listen to those and you can go, yeah, those aren't really great things for us to engage in, right? You would be, as I said, debauched and debased if you just continually dwelled in those modalities of consciousness. That's agreed.
Yeah.
But they're all vices. They're not direct actions that we do to others that initiate harm.
Right. They're vices. Right.
Right. Vices are not crimes. They are things we shouldn't aspire to for higher consciousness, but they themselves, in and of themselves, are not harmful actions that we initiate upon others. Okay? So let's take, for example, jealousy. Jealousy is not, if I'm jealous of something that you have,
I don't even know it.
that does not mean that I've initiated harm upon you. Right. If I then were to take the thing that I was jealous of that you have, now I've conducted an actual, I've initiated a harm upon you that has degraded what you've earned. Okay? That's a violent behavior.
Kind of feels like taxes.
Right. Exactly. So let's look at the real 7 deadly sins and see how they differ in quality. So the false ones that religion gives to us, that the mind control system called religion gives to us: pride, gluttony, sloth, lust, anger, jealousy, greed. The real 7 deadly sins, the transgressions against natural law, the true initiation of violent and harmful behaviors are, and listen to the difference in quality: murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, coercion, deception.
Deception. Yeah, that's a fucking nasty one.
So, listen to the difference in quality. These are all direct violations of other people's rights to remain unharmed.
All those words kind of give you a feeling.
It's like a punch.
Yeah.
Compared to pride, gluttony, sloth, lust, anger, jealousy, greed.
Don't eat McDonald's.
Right. It doesn't even rate.
Yeah.
Right. So, what do the true 7 deadly sins all have in common?
Aggression.
True. It's the initiation
Violence.
of aggression and violence, but more so if we really compare them, right? So define each one, right? So tell me what murder is.
Taking someone's life.
There you go. Now, hold that definition in mind. What is assault?
I don't know how to do
Causing
assault.
harm to someone
Yeah.
in a
Yes.
violent fashion.
Physically?
Yeah.
Does that take something from them?
Safety, I guess. I don't know.
Their safety, their well-being,
Yeah.
their bodily well-being is taken.
Yeah.
Right? Rape.
Yeah, that's stealing sex.
Yeah.
Right. You're stealing someone's bodily autonomy by forcing them to have sex. You're taking their free will of sexual association from them, right? Simple theft is taking someone's physical property, right? Trespass is taking the security of another person's living space from them, right? Coercion is taking someone's free will by putting them in the condition of duress, the implied threat of physical violence if they don't comply. So you're taking their free will. And then deception is taking someone's informed decision-making by willfully lying to them and giving them false information.
It is the same feeling if I get tricked. I mean, I'm not like I get tricked all the time, but if like you get tricked or there's deception, it is kind of the same like violated feeling as if like someone's like in my driveway or broke in my house.
Of course.
It feels the same. It's the same wrong feeling.
It's a violation of your rights.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what do all of them have in common? Something was taken that did not belong to the person initiating the behavior. Every form of wrongdoing under natural law transgressions against natural law, is a form of theft. Every single one is a form of theft. There's only one wrongdoing: stealing. Every wrongdoing can be boiled down to a form of taking something that doesn't belong to you. Every true right is a property right.
I mean, not to like keep harping on Wizard of Oz, but in the beginning of it, dude, the chick comes in with a paper from the government saying, I have to take your dog.
There you go.
And fucking Dorothy flips out.
And you know what
like,
that represents? The soul.
And then
She's trying to take the soul because the dog represents the soul of the being that's guiding them on the path to truth.
And her Annie M's just like, well, we can't go against the law. And that's like the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
That I watched it. I watched the whole thing last night. That's would that be considered far out back then for like the 30s, like that movie?
I would say it was cutting edge, certainly, because it became a total cult classic in that time period, and rightly so. It's one of the best movies ever made. For people who are younger, who haven't seen it, I mean, they really should watch it and really ponder it deeply and the concepts in it, because this is a theosophical allegory. The concepts in it are definitely derived from theosophy. Baum himself was a theosophist, and he incorporated all of those occult ideas into it. Namely, that each one of the characters represents an aspect of human consciousness. So Dorothy is the individual that has to learn the truth about what's going on regarding power and government and control structures. Religion. Religion is, the two witches, the wicked witches. They represent the old world order, and the wizard represents the new world order, of government. And, human consciousness is represented by the main characters that Dorothy encounters on the yellow brick road, the road to truth, the road to the development of the soul. The things, again, that I mentioned earlier that we need intelligence, we need care, and we need willpower to act, courage. And the three characters she encounters are the Scarecrow, who lacks a brain. He lacks intelligence. So this is Baum in the allegory telling people this is the very first thing we have to develop. We have to develop, a mind. We have to work to understand how to think and not be fooled, not be a brainless person. So that's the Scarecrow. And then the Tin Man represents, the Tin Woodsman represents care. He wants a heart. Okay, so this is care. This is getting out of apathy. Again, when they find him, he's frozen. That represents apathy. He can't move. He's rusted shut. They have to, oil him to make, the heart, come back into action. But, that's what he wants. He wants to develop care. And then, of course, the Lion represents having courage and willpower to act. So it's your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. Your thoughts have to attain to intelligence. Your emotions have to attain a state of care, true care, to change things. And your actions have to attain to a state of courage and willpower. Courage is the internal aspect of action, and willpower is the external aspect of action. Again, represented by the cowardly lion, who wants courage to act. Again, as we alluded to earlier, the dog Toto represents the soul. That is the guiding aspect, guiding Dorothy on her journey into truth. And then, of course, the wizard himself is the illusion of power, in the Emerald City, the capital city. So,
yeah, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
There you go.
Like, if that's what that's from.
He's pulling all the
never seen
levers.
any of that.
He's in the ostensible corridors of power, pulling all the levers, making things happen, frightening people.
I feel like on a level, like, kids know that it's a big deal because it's like, if you start watching and it's black and white, Dorothy gets swept up into a tornado, like up over the rainbow, and then she's in the world of color.
Right.
And then she has a whole experience, then goes back to the black and white world, and everybody's laughing at her like, what happened? That was just a dream. She's like, no, it really happened. And she's a completely different person after going on this journey to Oz. It's
and that
crazy.
in and of itself represents the real world, and then going into a higher level of consciousness to understand philosophical ideas, changing the self, then coming back, boots on the ground in the real world, and then having to relate that experience to other people, which some people find impossible to integrate and then relate to others.
And we should always just be trying to do this.
That's right.
Over and over again.
Without a doubt. That's what the whole allegory is really about. It's about learning the truth and then helping other people to also recognize it and learn it. And that's the great work. That is that's the hardest work there is in the world to do, because what it really represents is changing other people's minds, being a source of influence to help people to change their thoughts, because all manifested results ultimately come from our thoughts. Our thoughts are the causal factors that then go into our decision-making processes on how we're going to behave in the world, then our behaviors go out into the world and actually create the shared reality that we all have to then experience and live in. That's how the laws of manifestation, the laws of attraction actually work.
I mean, you're doing it. You're probably having a huge influence that you don't even realize.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people say that, but I have a hard time accepting that because so little in the world has changed since I started doing this. And I think the world's in an even worse position than it was when I started doing this publicly back in 2007.
Well,
for 16 years of work, there's not really much physically manifested change in the world. And I think the occultists that I worked with knew that there wouldn't be. They knew where they had people's minds back then, 20, 25 years ago, or more when I was with them approximately. And I think they already knew how far down the path they had people in the mind.
I got 2 questions for you. Are you scared of them?
Not a bit.
Are you scared of?
Great.
Not even a little bit.
Are you scared of?
I don't register to them. You got to understand. I am a 0. I'm I'm a negative to them. I'm not only am I like on a 10 on their radar, I'm a -1. Okay. They do not care about anything I'm doing because they know people don't really understand anything that I'm doing. People not only don't understand the philosophy I'm putting out there, they have no idea what it is to do this type of work. 0. You know, again, I've told the story. I have people come and look at my operation and see what it actually is that I wake up every single day and do physically in my home. And I can tell they want to run. they want to get the fuck away as fast as possible in the other direction. They're like, this is what you do on a day-to-day basis? Get the fuck out of here. I'm serious.
I can understand like why like on like a lot of your streams and stuff like that, like you get pissed off because like you did this much work and people are still like following COVID lockdowns and stuff. Like I would be going fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's not been good. It's been rough. Again, I try to maintain somewhat of a balanced attitude regarding it, but even for a person who understands what I understand, it's very difficult. It's very difficult not to get insanely mad, insanely angry. I try to temper my anger to use it to fuel my actions of what I'm going to do next. You know, that I look at it as fuel for that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
like
how I have
divine
to.
masculine.
Yeah, exactly. I have to do that because then it will become imbalanced, and I don't really want, because then it'll hurt your health. It'll hurt your work. I don't want it to do that, so I try to keep it somewhat tempered. But yeah, I have to vent it sometimes because of exactly how much ignorance still surrounds us.
Are you afraid of dying?
Not a bit. You know,
How did you get
I mean,
to
I want to live as much as anybody does, you know, but I don't fear physical death.
Fear physical death.
No, because it doesn't matter, regardless whether you fear that or not, it's going to occur. So it's sort of illogical to just live your life in fear of that. But, you know, as I say, the fear of death is the beginning of slavery. You know, every justification that people give for the continuation of government and the continuation of human slavery is fear-based. But how would this be done? That's fear. Soon as somebody says, but I don't understand how this or that, or how we would do this, the first response to that should be, you're in a consciousness of fear. That very response is fear-based.
You should create like a consciousness school where you grow up just with this stuff. Yeah. See what happens. Just as an experiment.
What the whole operation called What on Earth is Happening is. See, the thing is, we don't need physical brick and mortar structures. Yeah. We have the medium of making that school a worldwide present educational outreach effort in every home. The internet is that vehicle. Spreading the information digitally is that process and the vehicle for it. And this is what I've been trying to get people to understand. The only solution to human slavery is a spiritual solution, and it lies in understanding objective morality and natural law and teaching it to other people. there is a technological component to that. It doesn't mean technology is the solution. I tell people there's no political solution to human slavery. There's no financial solution to human slavery. There is only a spiritual solution to human slavery. The spiritual solution is proper moral education. There's not even a technological solution to human slavery, but the solution in moral education has a tech component to it, meaning in order to educate the masses widely and freely, you have to learn the educational vehicle for expression called digital media. And you have to understand the ultimate, vehicle for expressing that is the internet. That's the technical component. But the solution is not technology. The solution is spirituality. The solution is philosophy. The solution is proper understanding of morality from a true perspective, not a religious perspective.
Right.
When people hear me talk about morality and natural law, they think somehow this is a religion. This is the polar opposite of religion. This is the ultimate spiritual science. I am not a believer. I finished my cult beliefs when I left Satanism. That's the last cult I will ever be a member of. That's the last cult I will ever fall for. It's the last cult I will ever join. I am not only not trying to start a religious belief or tradition or cult, I am trying to explain to people exactly how to protect themselves against the techniques of cults. And I explain this in my work. Government is a cult. It's not just a religious belief system. It's a religion, but the definition of a cult is a religion that has become dangerous to other people that do not adhere to its religious dogma.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So a cult, for something to qualify as a cult, it has to involve the initiation of harm to others because of their religious beliefs. And that could come in the form of stealing someone's money, stealing their promising future that they have because you want to take everything from them and invest it into your religion, keeping people from their loved ones, manipulating their mindset. These are all forms of cult techniques, but this is what what government is. Government is not just a religious belief. If it was just a religious belief that was not initiating harm to other people, fine. There's plenty of things. People can believe in all other forms of nonsense. But as long as it doesn't convert into, I'm going to start doing harmful things to other people, especially people who don't believe that what I'm saying is true or real or morally legitimate. Once it crosses that line, it's a cult. And that's what government is. Government is a cult religion. It's a cult belief system.
I can see that, just the way people get into it, man.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
People get into it, and you're like, dude, are you fucking kidding me?
And they don't even understand that they're cult members, And that's what the great work is. The great work is convincing other people through philosophy and influence, you've joined a cult. And it's immoral. What they do is immoral, and what they have you believing in and condoning, and in many cases doing yourself, is in and of itself immorality. It is violence, it is coercion, it is duress, and ultimately, by the very belief in that and doing of any of those immoral behaviors, you yourself are condoning and perpetuating human slavery.
That's deep.
Now, think about, people do not want to hear that they are an accessory to slavery. But every person who has ever worked a government job is an accessory to slavery. Every police person that has ever put on a uniform is an accessory to slavery. Every person who's ever joined the military has been an accessory to slavery.
Well,
and we have to
reparations for
say
me,
it
maybe.
like that. How many people in the world are blatantly saying it just like that because it's the truth without fear of reprisal and not mincing their words or trying to cover you're trying to placate other people's emotional sensibilities. I don't care what anybody thinks of that. I don't care what anybody in person around me thinks of that. I said this to a room full of people.
It's crazy you don't get
over the last 2 weeks. Let anybody try. You know what I mean?
I think it's kind of funny to like sit there and like people will shit on what's the thing Tom Cruise is Scientology because you have to give them a bunch of your money and then they'll turn around and do their taxes at the end of the year and then give the government half of their fucking money. It's the same exact thing as Scientology.
All religion works like that, you know, ultimately. You know, it's we have to come out of this babyfied mindset that we need to externalize our power to anybody else. I mean, this is where we can get into, you know, psyops, especially the stand down psyops, the savior psyops, you know.
They hurt.
That's the whole thing. Q is the savior psyop. Trump is the savior psyop, you know. In the New Age movement, they have the UFO cult psyops, the Blue Avians.
Not having any of that.
The
got no
Arcturians.
aliens.
The Arcturians, their warp drive has stalled, and
I'm channeling
The
Lemurians.
Anunnakis, yeah.
they're about halfway here. They'll be here any day now. You know, this whole idea that we need to externalize power to others, you know, that ensures that this immoral condition is going to continue.
The occult, like Mark says, the occult are master psychologists. If you know there's an inherent need for mommy and daddy, dude.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
You can create that. You can do this all day long. They're making new people every day.
Yeah.
Well,
There's new customers every day.
Here's the proof that they're master psychologists, right? And this is what I try to explain to people you have to understand the occult as. Stop looking at it even as a religion. It is a religion. It is a cult. But, and a cult just means hidden. It means hidden knowledge. Well, what is the hidden knowledge that we're talking about? We're talking about how the mind works, how you can manipulate the mind. That's the hidden knowledge, the knowledge of mind control, mind influence, and how it really works. So, I mean, you know, just imagine that, and I lost my train of thought there.
I was just saying, like, you know, they know, these dark occultists, they know that you inherently need parents.
There you go. That's what I was going to get
They can
into.
take this feeling deep into your old adult age.
Yes.
Dude. Like,
thank you for the reminder. So I try to tell people that stop looking at it as some twisted, even cult religious belief. What we have to better understand dark occultism as is its ancient, deep psychology about how the mind works and how it can be manipulated. And here's a proof.
If you say occult to somebody, they go eyes wide shut.
Right. Or just evil.
Yeah.
The first word is evil or mysticism, evil, you know, voodoo, you know.
But really, they're just ancient Freuds.
Hidden information about how the mind works, hidden information about how the universe works. That's it. That's what the occult contains. And they're trying to hide the real ways that those things work. So I'll give you two examples, one ancient, one modern, right? In the ancient world, let's say the priest king knew everything there was about astronomy and eclipses, etc., because they would train their eyes by living in extreme darkness to then go out and be able to see the night sky.
Damn, is that for real?
Oh, a lot of ancient astronomers would literally live in pure darkness so that their
become
eyes
like
would be
telescopes.
hypersensitive to light, and they would be able to see things that other people couldn't see in the sky. Yeah.
That's how they saw the planets. I don't understand. Yeah. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, so they train themselves with light deprivation.
That's so cool.
And then they would, be able to tell, okay, well, I understand the timings of when eclipses are going to occur, and now I can predict them. And other people had no idea what an eclipse even was, let alone its time cycles. So they would then gather the people and say, there's going to be a monster that's going to come and eat the sun. And if you don't obey, I've been in communication with this beast, and if you don't obey me as its medium, then our whole society is going to be destroyed. The sun's going to go away. Crops aren't going to grow. We're all going to die. And this is how childish the ancient population was, that they did not understand anything about how nature works, and they would just believe this priest king that they would then get externalize and give all their power to. This is the occult. The occult is just knowledge of how something works that the average idiot doesn't understand. And then the one who does understand it can manipulate them like taking candy from a baby. This is how we have to understand the occult world.
What's a modern version of that?
So a modern version of it is setting up systems of government and political parties, right? We just were talking about people have issues psychologically that are unresolved, and most of them deal with their parents not giving them the attention they needed, not giving them the education they needed, not really fulfilling different desires and needs as far as emotional, as far as being even present physically in many cases. Most people have some form of parental abandonment issues going on psychologically. The occult exploits that. They create two political parties in most political systems that represent mother and father as a proxy, as a psychological proxy. So just think about this here in the United States. What are the two political parties? Republican and Democrat. Okay? The Republican Party represents the father figure. Think about it. It's always about being a protector, not a provider, but a protector, right? They want a strong military presence, strong police. They want to represent the protective father figure that's going to protect you from harm. The Democratic Party represents the provider, the nurturing protector, as we're going to give you the care and support that you need, right? They want to be the nanny state that's going to like watch over you and gives you this false sense of love that we care, we want to provide, we want you to have all the things that you need, right? So, right wing, Republican represents the father figure. Left-wing Democrat represents the mother figure, psychological proxies. And that's why there's only really a choice between two. There can only be two parents. So they are going to maintain this false dichotomy, this dialectic of two political parties, each representing one of the parents. That's how the occult works. Another brief example, look at the ways that people are easily manipulated into believing people in government care about them.
Yeah, that shit pisses me off.
I look back, and this is largely scrubbed from the internet, but you could still find it in certain places, in certain file sharing places. Look up Obama's fainting ladies. And this is an example I give to people of occultism at work in our world. Okay, so it's a video compilation that was made many years ago during Obama's 2008 presidential campaign.
All the hope and change.
Where he was running. All of those slogans, of course, came out of that. But one of the most enlightening things about that campaign was a technique of neuro-linguistic programming and direct occult mind control that Barack Obama and his handlers and the people who, orchestrate his campaign speeches were doing. And they magically stopped after this compilation video came out.
Holy
so
shit.
What it was he'd set up his campaign speech in usually a large public square of some type. People would gather to hear him speak. He'd start into his speech. About 5 or 10 minutes into the speech, there would be a plant from his organization, from his handlers, in the audience that would fake faint, that would pretend to faint.
Okay.
But nobody else in the audience knew that this was a setup. They thought that this woman was really passing out. So she'd fake pass out in the audience. Nobody else knew this except Obama and his little team of people who orchestrated the event. And then Obama would be the first person to notice it.
Oh my God.
So from his podium, he would stop his speech and he would point it out and say, "Oh, I think someone just fainted. I think someone just passed out." And then so what's this painting the picture of? He's extraordinarily attentive. He's paying attention to everybody and he cares and he knows what's going on. And he's one of the first people to recognize what's happening. And this is how they're manipulating people.
That's a carnival trick.
It's a carnival show.
That's like the Marvel dude, like from Oz, dude.
Yeah.
Like that's like fucking straight out the gate, man behind the curtain.
That's no different than the guy saying the sun's going to get eaten by
That's
the beast.
correct.
Yes.
It's an old form of occultism, a modern form of occultism.
This is literal mind control.
I've never heard of that in my life.
So he then says, she's probably just overheated. She probably just got a little faint and overheated. And so now he's coming off as he knows the answer. Make some room for her. Just give her some space, right? How does he know she didn't have a brain aneurysm and is dying?
For real.
Already dead.
Yeah, right.
Hold off on CPR for a second.
How did she know she didn't have some kind of violent, massive coronary and is actively dying?
They're not going to get you, man.
So, then they expanded it. They did this over and over and every place they went on the campaign trail, they did this. It was the same act, same wording.
I mean, it's true.
We have
because
somebody who just fainted. Like, look this up. Look up Obama's fainting ladies. It's still out there in some places.
It's also
harder to find. They scrubbed this from most video sharing sites.
Yeah, I'll try to find that.
It's on my ARC drive. It's on my ARC. Okay?
The ARC's nice, by the way.
Thank you.
Tell people about the ARC real quick.
The ARC drive is a collection of research data that I've collected really since I've been online. I've been probably downloading these things since like
the ultimate saver.
Mid-90s into the late 90s, like from when I was originally online with like a 14.4K dial-up connection,
Modem.
back in 95, 96, all the way to the modern day. So, it's a 2 terabyte hard drive filled completely with information that I make available to people. They just send me a drive. I fill up the data on it and send it back to them. You could check out the ARC section of my website at whatonearthishappening.com. But going back to Obama's campaign trail, he's just telling people, he's just saying, I think somebody's feeling faint there. Just make space for him. And then he starts in later videos, and after doing this like 5, 6, 7 times, now he's expanding it. Here, give her some water, and he offers his water.
Oh my God!
Jesus Christ.
He does a lot of weird
takes
water
his
stuff.
water from the podium, and gives it into the crowd to pass to her. So look at all the things this is psychologically instilling in people's minds. He's attentive. He's the first person to notice it. He's smart. He knows that she's just faint and what needs to be done. He's caring. He gives of his own water that was for, him to drink if he got dry during his speech to her, And what does this instill in people? Trust, confidence. Oh, he's a caring person. He's an intelligent guy. This is all made up bullshit.
He totally
But
won't
this
bomb
bullshit,
a preschool in Syria.
This bullshit, dude. My mom still sweats the shit out of that, dude. This bullshit works on any woman, adult woman that did not have an alpha dad.
Yes.
Play Obama's fainting ladies for people, and then tell me what you really think
nothing
of
will
Barack
happen.
Obama.
This is the shit that pisses me off, because you can have something like that, show it to someone, and they just turn around and go, "You're fucking crazy. You look way too far."
I don't even understand how they could see the same thing happening. So they're a pure coincidence theorist then, because you're telling me that's not an orchestrated setup, right? Every campaign speech until this compilation was made and released, then it suddenly never happened again.
It is crazy how they bop around thinking that the internet doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah, they're kind of they're old as shit. Like Joe Biden, them are like 80 years old. It's like
Obama was
think
young
about
though,
this.
dude.
13 times in just the compilation we know about. Could have been 2025.
Yeah.
It's a nice little trick. Yeah.
Almost the exact same wording in every incident. The person standing practically at the same place who faints, because she probably just went to generally the same place in the audience so he could easily recognize where she's at. He says almost the exact same lines every time.
I mean, if that happened for real, I think he'd be like, "What the fuck is going on? This has happened
How
13
many
times
people
now."
faint? First of all, how many people have you ever seen actually fainted?
None.
Have you ever witnessed
I've
someone
never seen anyone
actually faint?
I've never seen it at all, ever.
None of us have ever seen
Not saying it doesn't exist.
fainting happens,
Yeah.
but so few people have actually witnessed actively a person passing unconscious from fainting that it's practically negligible among the human population.
Yeah.
For Obama, every campaign speech for a woman, it's always a woman.
Yeah.
It's never a guy fainting.
Never.
Right?
Oh
Always
my
a
God.
woman fainting.
One of these, he catches a pregnant woman during a speech who's fainting.
Oh my God.
This is one of their favorite
This
techniques.
is nuts.
Yeah, it's the creation of the belief that you are a truly caring person.
Wow, fainting woman. Wow, that just happened.
Yeah, over and over you see this. The compilation.
This is carny shit.
Oh yeah.
The compilation came out with approximately 13 different campaign speeches. I think it was around that number. And suddenly, no one ever fainted again on Obama's campaign trail.
I can't fucking believe I've never heard this. in my life.
I know this
That's
is a great
the
one.
world of the occult. You know, another example I give of modern occultism, and people will just say, oh, this is clever marketing. No, you're incorrect. It's not just clever marketing. It's not just a clever way of getting people to buy a product. It's occultism. Do you know the Betty Crocker egg story?
Yes,
I don't.
I know this. This is a cult. This is Edward Bernays.
The Betty Crocker cake mix story. Okay, so Betty Crocker invented instant cake mix in the mid-1950s. It was a failure. Housewives did not want it. They wanted to make a cake from scratch for their families. They looked at a mix as cheating, as like, oh, I'm not going to put my time and care and attention into providing something nice for my family. I'm just, whipping together some,
Powder
in a bowl, and they didn't want it. It was a colossal failure. They spent millions at that point in research and development for instant cake mix, and
That's crazy
housewives
to
in
do.
America did not want the product.
Follow this. This is fucking wild. Follow this.
So, what do you think somebody like the Betty Crocker Corporation would do? You develop the product and it's a complete failure. What do you think would they try to do? Maybe you'd think, oh, we'll go back to the drawing board and create a new product.
Create a problem for that.
No, they're going to
Worse.
practice some deception.
Worse. They decided, we don't care that the housewives don't want this product. We've invested too much money in its creation and we don't accept that it's a flop. We want to make them want it. That was their company's attitude at the board of director level was, we are uninterested in going back to the drawing board and making something that women or housewives do want. We are going to look into the process of making them want what we already have, even though we've just been given a directive. We've been given
An F on the report card.
a total dictate from the masses. We've been given that we don't want this, and that's unacceptable. We're going to make them want it. So they went to Madison Avenue advertising campaign executives.
Like Mad Men.
Right.
Yeah.
And they said, we have a flop product on our hands that we've invested a lot in R&D into, and we want to find out why housewives don't want it, and we want to make them want it. And the Madison Avenue psychologists that were the wizards of their day said, this is doable. We can make it happen. We will research it. We will get back to you and we will give you a solution. So they went to work and I guess did some, interviews about why women didn't want it. They found out that women were experiencing feelings of guiltiness for not providing the care and attention that they had previously given their family members by making a cake from scratch, okay, with all fresh ingredients, nothing pre-prepared, and the time and care that it would take to do that. And they'd have fulfillment from that in, a particular way. When doing the cake mix, they didn't have that fulfillment. They experienced guilt. They looked at it as they were taking a shortcut. So what was the answer? So the ad campaign executives who were occult psychologists went to Crocker, board of directors and said, all you have to do is add some instructional words to the box of the cake mix. You do not have to change your product. You don't have to go back to the drawing board and make anything new. You need to add a few words onto the box, and the housewives will buy the cake mix. So how could this be? And literally it was 3 words. In the instructions, they had to write on the box, add 1 egg
Dude, you're laughing.
to the cake mix.
This is very deep, dude. This is in that. It's their ova.
So the egg is the symbolic archetype of the creative essence of the female.
Shit.
Because the egg is what combines with the sperm to create life. So it's the feminine, creative, archetypal energy.
Damn.
So by providing that symbol of the egg being put into the cake mix, and it doesn't matter that it's a chicken egg or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just the concept of an egg.
Right into their
Being
subconscious.
implanted subconsciously. That's how the occult works.
And it works so well. 30 years later,
And then
I
they're-
never had a real pancake.
Now we got funfetti in this bitch.
They're giving of their creative essence symbolically through a proxy, through an archetypal proxy. And then the women's guilt was assuaged. The housewife's guilt was then assuaged in the subconscious mind by doing that act of putting the egg into the cake mix. And then they bought it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, dude.
How do you protect yourself against these, like, besides, like,
That's a great
doing
question.
the great work? Like,
So think about that. That's the question.
Yeah.
What would level that playing field? What would make someone not susceptible to that type of occult manipulation?
absolute honesty to yourself?
More so than that, because yes, that is the first occult maxim or dictate, if you will. It's saying you must do this if you're going to grow in consciousness. The first is stop lying to yourself. The second is stop dreaming. Stop imagining the world to be some other way. Accept it as it is. That doesn't mean that you accept it and don't try to change it. But you don't envision, you don't look at the world through rose-colored glasses and dream and imagine, oh, all of this is fine and it's all in place the way I think that it is, and I'm not going to really try to change anything for the better because I'm living in a dream world. Again, Neverland, So that's number two. Number three is, and this is what I'm alluding to, learn how to think. If we have the knowledge of how the psyche works, we can't be manipulated by that tactic. If we have the knowledge of how our sympathies can be played upon by a carny trickster like Obama, by planting a fake feigning woman in the crowd,
This hurts. Obama,
then you look
dude.
at it and you're like, asshole carny.
Yeah.
I'm not manipulated by that bullshit.
Just missing a snake tattoo. They are.
Right. That's all a person like that is and never has been. And all politicians are like that. Not just him. He just is very good at it.
Yeah.
He's a very good actor.
Yeah.
And once you see it, it's so transparent. I mean, you might as well literally go off in the carny act and wear some fucking clown suit. Like, it's that transparent. And then when you see the people can't see it, you're like, my God, that person's a fucking dumbass. You're even dumber than them.
That's how it is kind of going around the second round. Like when the first like Trump stuff started happening in the queue, like we were watching that. I was like, holy shit, like this is fucking crazy. But like on this go around, I'm watching this, like shit's kind of funny. Like Trump makes me laugh and like debates. But other than that, it's like, dude, why does anyone give this an ounce of their
At
fucking
least
time?
Trump has a modicum of somewhat of a comical presence.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, couldn't trust him. Don't even know whether he's really on their side, but definitely he's not an enlightened person, with what he still believes regarding government.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the answer to your question is knowledge is the great leveler. Knowledge is the great leveling of the playing field. If I understand how the archetypes of symbolism really work in the subconscious mind, I'm not going to buy for, add an egg.
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy into add an egg. I'm going to understand, I see what you just did there, and most people can't. That's the problem. They're stuck in a level of ignorance that does not allow them to see these techniques at work.
And by the time they figure out, they're they're already grown up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the thing that
Grown
kills you.
children.
You're already like, in your 20s. You probably already voted.
Grown children who
They
will
probably
then,
already got one vote out of you already.
they'll even then try to say, oh no, none of that works that way. Like they're that ignorant. They're so ignorant and they're so in ego. See, because the adult mindset, will look at this from a perspective of pure ego and selfishness. The ego is the force that does not want the individual to say to themselves, I was wrong, I was fooled, I was duped. It doesn't mean that the person can't be really intellectually intelligent, but holistic intelligence means you're able to say, I was wrong. Like, if I didn't have holistic intelligence, I wouldn't have come out of my cult. I would not have come out of the cult of Satanism. I had to develop holistic intelligence to realize, you know what? I'm the dupe in this instance. I'm the tool here being used. I was a tool.
You were a fool.
Yeah.
A fool and a tool. I mean, the street lingo word, you're a tool, Yeah. You're being used by somebody else. They're duping you. They're playing you. You're getting chumped. You're getting played. I had to realize that was me. There's no shame in that. The shame is staying there.
Yeah, right.
That's where the shame is at. I had to look myself in the mirror and go, hey, you got fooled here. Now, what are you going to do about it?
Won't get fooled again.
There you go.
Now,
as the song so wisely says.
We should go out on that one.
Another question I have real quick, just because like you seen maybe you can quell my anxiety over this shit.
Okay.
Grew up Catholic. I watched all those like demonic possession videos. What do you think demons and like all that possession shit is? Or is that just them getting in your mind and fucking muddying up the waters?
There's a couple of schools of thought on that. There are people who, get into, summoning in the occult.
Like that shit at the Boleskine house with Crowley is fucking crazy.
So again, do people think that it's actually a real physical, non-corporeal presence, perhaps extra dimensional? I don't rule that out. I have an open mind regarding things like that. I don't have any experience with demonic presences, entities, spirits, things like that. Things like that tend to stay away from my life path, to be quite honest.
You're probably fucking terrified.
I think I'm so rooted in my life path and my mission that if there are physical entities like that, non-corporeal entities, I should say, like that, I think they look at me and they're like, yeah, no, don't even bother. Don't go near him. Just leave him alone. You're going nowhere with that one. Yeah. So, I think that's why I don't really have personal experiences like that, but I don't rule them out that they are real and happen. But I think more so than that form of presence, non-corporeally, extra-dimensionally, however you want to look at it, I think what quote unquote demons are really aspects of our own psyche and personality that are very deeply nested way down into the subconscious mind. And if we don't try to deal with them and bring them up to a conscious level, then they act in demonic ways.
They form into.
Is that kind of like the shadow work stuff you talk about?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So it can kind of form into like you're externalizing an entity to fight your shadow.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, it's like Link.
And, this is because of not taking the personal responsibility to do that type of dark shadow work upon the aspects of the personality that we don't really like about ourselves. This is what I had to do when coming out of the satanic mindset.
It must have been brutal.
Oh, it was the worst dark night of the soul that one could imagine.
I mean, you were a Satanist.
Yeah.
Not going to lie, like I really contemplated not wanting to live at that point in my life.
Yeah, definitely.
It was that bad.
That's fucking crazy.
And it went on for a couple of years after, like it wasn't like a 2-week process,
Yeah.
to like realize even the low level depth of my involvement in Satanism. It was not high level at all, by my own admission. Even that, I wrestled with so terribly in the aftermath and said, like, what a piece of shit I've been.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe I let myself get fooled like that. I was involved. And, the mindset that I had to come out of, I mean, I was a eugenicist. I wanted to see the reduction. Oh, big time.
Oh, man.
Dude, not only was I a Satanist, I really advocated.
You hated fuckers.
I was a total misanthropist. I hated human beings. Misanthropic through and through, balls to bone.
You're a bit of a humbug.
And the Satanists that were trying to groom me for higher levels of involvement in the worldwide network and hierarchy of dark occultism were always trying to sell me on, if you go further, if indeed you do fully come up into our ranks. We're going to groom you for the Club of Rome. We want to take you into the Club of Rome. Was what was said to me by certain people. Because they knew my psychological profile. They do extensive psychological profiling when they bring you into their groups, what they call grottos, at least in Satanism they do. And, the coven wasn't a term that was used. Grotto was the term.
That's weird.
So when they had meetings, it was the gathering of a grotto.
It's weird they made Hugh Hefner's grotto so famous. You got me thinking about that now. Fuck.
So, a grotto is a clearing in a forest. And this is what they consider their group gathering.
Oh, like
Always in the woods with that shit.
Bohemian Grove.
Grove. Right.
You know about Devil's Road?
No. What
Down in on Kennett, there's a wooden wall. They make a left, and they called it like a
Here
Devil's.
in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Really?
It's down on Route 1, but supposedly they just cut
Not
the
familiar.
trees on an angle. But
Okay.
there's like a weird satanic house down there.
So they were prepping you for the club. Thank God you went fucking.
Now,
Obi-Wan
if
and
anybody
not
doesn't know, the
Anakin.
Club of Rome is a big think tank that deals with population reduction.
Yeah, man.
They advocate for population reduction. I feel that probably this is where people like Gates and Schwab and Harari, they're working probably closely with the Club of Rome, certainly the Bilderberg Group, who is directly involved with the Club of Rome.
You would have been powerful on the dark side.
Me and my buddy Jay Parker, who was involved in generational Satanism, always joke you could have been Senator Passio by now. We joke around all the time.
Hold on. Generational Satanism?
Jay Parker? You're not familiar with his work?
No.
Oh, you absolutely have to be. You should get him on. Jay was involved at a much higher level of Satanism than even myself because he was born into it.
What?
Yeah.
You heading to church on Sundays, or like
Oh,
what are you
no.
doing?
I mean, he was ritually abused horrifically.
Holy
with
fuck.
electronic methods of torture. Yeah, it was bad.
That's what they do to their kids.
yes.
Yeah.
What the fuck? That makes sense. That is
So
fucked
you
up.
if you interview him, it's a brutal recognition of what this religion entails. But when you are born into it, this is what is done to you, because that's how they control their offspring.
Yeah.
Bring them into their mindset very psychopathically.
That is their deal, dude. They are going into these clearings with an owl with a Moloch, dude. The predator bird.
Yeah.
They can see in the dark. You can't. That's the deal.
Yep. That's why an owl is one of their big pieces of symbolism. Predator bird that can see in the dark where its prey can't see it.
Yeah, I mean, like this, like it takes the wind out of me, but like I think at the end of the day, the only thing I try to focus on is making my life and anyone who's involved in my life better. Because other than that, I fucking can't control.
Yeah,
Like,
we're pretty limited.
voting won't do dick. Right. All this other like going on about like all you can do is help your fucking friends and family.
You're doing what is required. Like putting out information and educating human beings is what is required. That's the great work. The great work is the work of education, morally.
Let's go.
See, the problem is most people don't know real morality. If you can't define a right, you can't define the wrongs. You have to know what the real wrongdoings are in order to know objective morality. Then, if you teach that to other people and the understanding of morality propagates, the whole human experience gets better.
I got to write down those real 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
And, to help people to understand that, there's a law of freedom. People would say, well, aren't law itself and freedom diametrically opposed? No. Man's law and freedom are diametrically opposed, not natural law, not the universe's law, not the creator's law.
In my life, freedom just goes along with way more work.
Yeah.
That's true. It's easy to do evil. It's easy to do chaos. It's easy to break things down, right? It's much easier to break a glass than it is to make a glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Okay?
right. Yeah.
To formulate this object, a glass, is a very difficult process of manufacturing that most
yeah.
people would not know how to do.
Yeah.
To break a glass is easy. Throw it against the wall. It shatters in a million pieces.
Yeah, right.
Chaos is easy. Disorder is easy. Ordering and harmonizing and creating form and function and a higher level of awareness and consciousness, that's hard work. That's the opposite of entropy. That's the opposite of breakdown and disorder. That's the opposite of chaos. The creation of order involves work. The creation of order involves effort. So if we're going to order our society, the effort or the one great work is proper moral education. That's the only way out of this mess. There is no other solution.
Well, Mark, is there anything you want to say to the people listening?
I would say go to my website, whatonearthishappening.com, if you want to learn more. The bulk of my information is, of course, in my podcast series that started out as an audio podcast for the first 196 episodes, continued on as a video podcast. We're around episode 270 something right now. And if you start with the podcast, start at number 1. Proceed in order at your own pace. Don't skip around. It's a tapestry of information. I explain the world of the occult. I explain many different occult traditions. I explain all the mind control and mental manipulation, psychological manipulation techniques of the occult in the podcast. I break down certain occult traditions in depth to help people to understand their purpose, what they're really trying to teach, their allegorical systems, their symbolism. And I think if you do that, you'll get a really maximum educational experience from my work. I also have many, many presentations and many video seminars online, so you could check them out as well. I have a ton of interviews up on my website. All of that is up at whatonearthishappening.com. And again, my main recommendation, take the podcast in order at your own pace all the way through, and a whole new worldview will open up to you.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Mark, you are the
Yeah,
fucking
you're
man.
the man, dude. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. Great interview.
Wow.